allow my guest to introduce himself to the show?
Joseph knows
There we go. There we go, Joseph.
all the work that Joseph knows.
I want to thank you first and foremost for coming on the show again. Today we're going to be talking about this Carmelo Anthony case. Today he was granted bond. His bond was reduced and he was released today. But before I go any further and get off into that, I want to talk about all this controversy that's been going on. It's been getting a lot of controversial. Far as with on both sides, with race, this thing has turned into a race game, but first and foremost, I want to I want to I want to say this about the media. The media has been painting a picture, has been painting a picture about Carmelo Anthony, that he's this thug, he's this this bad guy, and they just been putting out a bunch of false narratives. So before I go any further and before we start to show up, I just want to say us as as content creators in the black media, we have to do our part at painting a brighter picture than what the media has been putting out of Carmelo Anthony. So we have to do our due diligence and put out, a better outlook of what they've been trying to paint his picture of. This is an outstanding young man. This man is and before I get off into that, I'll just go ahead and allow you to elaborate on what I'm talking about, Joe. Because like I said, the white media has painted him out to be a thug. Has painted him out to be this bad guy. So just go ahead and elaborate on that, Joe. Because I have a bunch of things that I want to talk about. So go ahead.
Uh, you're right about that. About what 2 or 3 days ago we did this same topic 2 or 3 days ago,
Facts.
and I let my emotion get the best of me because based on what the news was saying, and this is what happens when you prematurely uh, say things without really doing that, your due diligence and try to learn what's going on first.
All right.
Um, the media is making it seem like, and this is what they do. It really, to be honest with you, they train to do this. It's not even
Right.
trained. Yeah, train to do this, and and we don't make it no easier because of how we destroy ourselves with our own images by doing the things we're doing and listen to the things we do, and you know the self hate that we display on a daily basis.
Right.
So the media has made the world and think that we are some dysfunctional people.
Right.
And I'm referring to black people, and so and I fell right into that. We all did actually because we so used to seeing that, and it's been
Facts.
displayed over and over again, daily, daily. You go on social media, you see ratchet things that we do as a race, black and black men, black women. We just see the ratchetness that go on a daily basis. So you kind of program to believe that, you know,
Yeah, and before you go any further, I want to I kind of want to come back and I'm not going to say apologize, but
I'm not apologizing fully, but yeah,
yeah, but I do want to come back and kind of straighten up what I said in the beginning, because when I first heard about this case, I kind of look at things as a right and wrong, not black and white, and when I first heard the case, it kind of took me by surprise, and I was just going off of the evidence that I heard, so I want to kind of retract of some of the things that I said in our first interview that we did, Joseph. Today I have a whole different mindset after hearing a lot of the some of the evidence come out, and not just only that. I just want to change the look on what the white media has tried to do, and trying to taint the jurors. You know what I mean? So I want to come out and just I want to give my apologies to the Carmelo Anthony family, because like I said, originally we said this, I said this was kind of like an open and shut case, and I was wrong, like I said, we knew a lot more evidence was going to come out, about this case. And and I'll just say I rushed the judge. But this time around, I'm going to do everything in my power, to try to make sure that I paint, a brighter picture of Carmelo Anthony. This was a young kid who was also an honor student, an A student. He was
Yeah.
also the captain of the football team and the captain of the track team. So I just want to ask you this question about how the white media has tainted this bad picture of this young man, when it's totally not true. You even had the sheriff of that town that actually made a
Mhm.
few statements about this young boy that was not true. So Joe, I want you to go ahead and
I
elaborate on
didn't
those few
hear,
statements.
if you go in detail with that, I didn't hear what the sheriff said. There's so much
uh
stuff going out there. It's hard to keep up with all that.
Yeah, I know. I forget exactly what statement he made, but it was a false statement that he did make.
We don't, and that's the problem. Law enforcement should keep their mouth closed because what you can do is, I'm already having doubts that he can have a fair trial because everybody that knows a little bit of something has put it out there and throwing their personal beliefs out there, and people are believing this. So the whole town is watching the news just like we are, and pretty much they're gonna have their mindset of what they're gonna do. But yeah, the media has, and that's our fault because we don't demand respect. To be
Right.
honest with you, the media has painted him as a criminal, and honestly, I wish that he never used a knife, even though he was getting jumped by the twins or potentially getting jumped by the twins. I wish he would just fought them and
Yeah,
not
I
use
mean,
the weapon.
originally me too. That was one of my things that one of the things I was saying in the beginning. It should have been a one-on-one fight.
But
If it got
even
that
if
far.
it's 2-on-1, I just don't know what weapon would have been the best thing
Right. But
because
this one thing that I do want to say, Joe, and I don't know if you heard it, I forget the name of this group, but it was another group that was it's like a civil, I forget the name of the company, but this group is like a civil right group, and this group comes in to make sure that 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 Carmelo is going to get a fair trial. They said a lot of key things today, that changed my mind on a lot of things that that I thought that I thought was right, but I was wrong on that. But I like how this group came in. They held the police responsible. They held a lot of the media responsible of the things that they were trying to portray and what they were trying to say in the news. How the white media was trying to taint
yeah,
and paint this bad picture. So
yeah,
like I said, I'm going to look it up in a second, and I think this group is called New Beginnings or something like that. But like I said, this group comes in just to make sure, for situations like that Carmelo Anthony will get a fair trial. You know what I mean? And they basically opened up asked a few questions or said a few things that a lot of the media was asking, about the knife. We found out that it actually wasn't a knife, and I'll get off into that
yeah.
later. But it was another thing that they brought to my attention, that they actually got video of the incident. So I'll allow you to elaborate on that, Joe. Tell me, what do you think? How that how this video may play in this court case coming up?
Well, it's definitely going to show that Anthony probably wasn't an aggressor, but that video is going to also show the uh, the the violence of him stabbing him. So that's what people going to want to go straight see. But I think that the video will show that them two twin brothers was the aggressor. But I I don't know because when you see a video and you see him fall and probably shaking and whatever else, it still can hurt Anthony at the same time.
Right.
Look, we don't know all the evidence. Uh, I do believe that I'm not fully agreeing with how Anthony handled it,
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, you know, I think he got a strong. I think he has a self defense case.
Yeah, I think he has an excellent defensive case. Which today his bond was lowered. He's home now.
Yeah, I've
And
seen
today
a
they
clip and
were
say he's
able to
home.
retain a great attorney. You know what I mean? Who's been on a lot of these cases. So that's a good thing. It's one of the things I want to talk about too, Joe. You know, w- we've been hearing a lot of from these white podcasters. Just putting out their own narratives too. They've been putting out a lot of false narratives this about Carmelo Anthony. So I just want to and I have some video and audio. Audio that I'm going to play. Just about from some of these other podcasters trying to put out a negative picture. Of Carmelo Anthony. So just give me your opinion on what you think about that, Joe. How you have all
That,
these different podcasters, putting out these false narratives and fake stories.
listen, it's easy. Uh, they doing this for one. It's very easy for podcasters to do this, especially because it's a race thing. And whether we like to admit that or agree with it, it's race. And so a black man killed a white person, and I don't care. And I'm just gonna keep it real honest. I'm not saying that all white people are racist,
Right,
but I do believe that it's not nature to stand by the truth for one. But I think it's a nature to decide what someone that look like you.
right.
You know,
I
that's
agree.
the way it is. And we try our hardest to act like that's not true, but it is true.
Right,
Like I wanted to believe in the beginning, I want to believe Anthony was innocent. And but when I saw the evidence based on what the media was putting out there that he was on a rampage, couldn't control his anger, he killed him. But as I hear it more and more and more, I realize that's not the case. So the media is and that's what the media does. They like to control the narrative. The
right.
media
Exactly.
controls want to control the narrative. And really, he is going to get justice. He's going to get prosecuted through the media. Like most of us do. Like I'm gonna keep it real. I'm not gonna be off topic, but Bill Cosby didn't get a fair trial. He got destroyed in the media,
Yeah, through the media.
and
And
it
this
was
is
the mind was already made up.
Yeah, and this is how the white media works, Joe. They'll come out before the jury is even selected. They'll come out with these false narratives. Trying to paint a different picture of of the person that they're trying to paint this picture of, which is Carmelo Anthony. So
Yeah,
they came out with this picture that they tried to paint of him being a thug. Which was
but
false.
but it wasn't
And
white
you
media. It
yeah,
was it wasn't just white media. It was black
no,
media.
you
This
even had
not
some of the black media
all the
even saying
all
that.
the media is doing this. It ain't just a white and black thing. So I want to clear it up too. I seen more of. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's more black media that went against us than white, and I seen enough of that today. You
Yeah,
know,
I, I, I saw
I
I
understand why
saw a
though.
lot of it today too. But like I said, you have to me you s- you have a lot of the white media, that was actually trying to taint this picture of him. And I agree with you. You did have a few black podcasters out there, that was sharing that same story that we saw these white podcasters or media stations that was putting out. But I want to ask you this question too, Joe. And you get this, and you got this from some of the podcasters that we were talking about. You had a lot of them trying to not circumvent, but trying to the money that Anthony family raised, they were trying to make it an issue, trying to make it an issue. Like, okay, well, the guy that actually committed the murder raised more money than the guy who actually got murdered. So I want you to elaborate on that. You see how they try to uh, change up the narrative that they're trying to that they were trying to collect money for his lawyer fees, but they never said that in situations where you had the Dylan Roof incident, you had what's the George, not the George Floyd, but what's the guy who killed the Trayvon Martin guy? George Zimmerman.
Hmm.
No one complained about these guys when they raised these millions of dollars for their bonds or their court hearings. So I want you to elaborate on that. Why do you think they trying to make this a big issue? About the money that Carmelo Anthony family was able to raise for his lawyer fees and bond
Because they
fees, I should say.
be, because they're not used to seeing black people stick together.
Right,
We so much hating each other. We kill each other all the time. And so when we do decide at one time really to stick together, it became like it was the worst thing in the world because they're not used to seeing us stick together.
right,
And that's what it's all about. When black people sit together, and that's what Martin Luther King, Michael X were trying to say years ago, maybe before they died. If we just work together, stick together, can no one stop us? So what it was is more of just seeing and it wasn't just black people who put it in there. I'm pretty sure it's white people in there as well. But I'm just saying is that if we're gonna go racial, is that they're not used to seeing us stick together. And normally when we do a heinous crime or we do something, we don't stick together. That's all it
right,
was. It was just
right.
more of the hate to see us stick together. And what unfortunately, uh Metcalf family, what is it,
Metcalf.
Metcalf family is going to raise more money.
Yeah, I mean, because
It's more. It's more.
they wasn't too far behind the 400 and some thousand,
No,
but
they had two. They had two fundraisers.
right,
One is the father which is a real estate. I don't know. He did with real estate anyway. He was able to collect almost 300 to 400,000 dollars on his own. And
right,
the mother set up her own GoFundMe, which is about 150,000, maybe 200,000 now. And
right.
they it's
So
five
how
hundred thousand
okay,
or more.
right. So yeah, so that bothers me for for this simple fact that both of his parents set up GoFundmes, but we have this they have this one GoFundMe set up for Carmelo Anthony's for his bond and for his lawyer's fees, and you got the world going crazy that they raised this money, but not like I said, not once did we complain about the money that they raised for Dylan Roof, George Zimmerman's for his defense, and all that, and then I forget the other case.
Yeah, there's many of them
Yeah,
where
it's a lot of them. They never
where
bring up. We never bring up those issues. But when we come together as one, and try to bring some things together so so this young man can have a defense case and be able to come home and be home during his trial. They're in an uproar.
I'm going to donate money to Anthony family, not
I
because
definitely am too.
it's not whether he innocent or not. I just want him to have a fair trial. And one thing
Yeah,
that I'm a former guy who used to be in the system, dealing with the courts, and if you don't have proper reputation, you don't stand a chance in a courtroom.
exactly.
From a guy
You know,
who trying to go for custody, for basic tickets, whatever. If you don't
yeah, I
have
mean that's for
proper
anything in
legal
life. If you don't
funds
have
or legal,
reputation, you will not be represented well.
I
But
want him to get. I just want him to be represented, and I want the truth to come out, and I need him to be represented. So if it costs me a few $100 to help do that, I will do that. We are in my family. We're gonna do that. But
okay,
I just want to make sure that he get a fair. If he's guilty, let him be guilty.
right,
If he's innocent, let him be innocent. But
right. Yeah, let it be a fair trial.
I just want to be fair, and I'm going to make sure it's fair because for once we're gonna need to sit together. And listen, I'm not trying to play the race thing. I just know that we don't always get the fair shake of the deal in the legal system, and then
And
I'm a
that's a
witness
fact.
to that. A lot of people witness to that. We hear stories over that, and I just want to make sure that he gets a chance. That's all.
Yeah, and that's why I want to come straight home and do the story, because let's do our due diligence on trying to paint another narrative, because one thing that the media was not talking about is how the father of the young man who was murdered, how he was how he was convicted of sexual assault, and he had
Well,
the nerve.
he wasn't convicted.
You say that again?
He wasn't convicted.
He wasn't convicted, but he
We're
was.
not we're not 100% sure. And there are some sexual allegations that was made against him,
Right.
but people was able to do the research online in Georgia, and there's nowhere they see his name on the sex registry for the state of Texas. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you know what? Well, if that's not, I won't bring up
But
nothing
we
that
could
we
say
can't prove.
alleged.
Right. And and I've heard this several times. He was allegedly, you know, caught up in some sexual assault allegations, and he had the nerve to
Yeah,
try to say, what type of parents would raise Carmelo Anthony? What type of parents did you have to raise you? And then not only that, they tried to make it seem like Carmelo Anthony come from a broken home, which
most
Austin Metcalf actually comes from a broken home. These guys weren't married, they were separated and were not together. You know what I mean? So
no,
these are the things in the games that the media plays. So us as African Americans, we have to do our due diligence, you know, um, um, and look up certain stuff and make sure that we get the right facts. And then not only that, no matter, I'm not going to say if you're right or wrong, but we have to stand behind our people. You know what I mean?
but but
And give them and like I said, and let the court do the judging. You know what I mean? Versus the
I
media. But go
agree.
ahead, Joe.
I agree with that so much, but it goes deeper than that. We have to do a better job of of putting our image better out there. Every time you look around, you look at Chicago and these black cities, and we just destroying each other. And the narrative is that these are wild animals, and this is what they do. So when Anthony did what he did, it automatically referred back to that. These are wild animals, and this is what they do. This is what
Hold
black
on, my
people
bad. Let
do.
me pause because I don't end up.
The attitude that American have against black people has always been what it is. They are
Right,
animals. They don't know how to act, and they don't know how to self control. How you know that? Look at Chicago. Look at New York. Look at Detroit. Look at L.A. Look at Memphis. Look at St. Louis. Look at these towns where black people are. And you just
right.
type it up, black people. They murder
Yeah,
each other. They go into Nike stores and just snatching up everything instead of them. We, and there's the media displaying this to keep us on a low. But it's
right.
the things that we are doing for them to have to say this against us.
I
If we
agree.
start treating, we start conducting ourselves and acting right and treat us and dealing and acting like we have some sense, then we wouldn't be going through the things we're going through right now. I know it's ingrained into a lot of people to think that way about us, but we can start by making ourselves look better.
I agree.
So
And it
we're
start.
not helping the situation either. In other words,
Right. So but yeah, Joe, let's get back to
I'm not going off the topic a little bit, but that's
no, you're
just
good. You're fine. You're fine. And I agree with you 100%. We have to stop painting this picture for ourselves that the media can put out there about us. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
That's all I'm saying.
So I agree with you 100%. But let's get off a little bit more into some of the things that we heard
Yeah.
about how the incident started, Joe. What's some of the things that you heard, with the brother? Because they lied about Austin dying in the arms of his brother. That was not true neither. So they
Well,
they they
the,
paint
the
these stories out to be stories that that their side of people can feel a little bit more. What's the word that I'm looking for? Sympathy, I should say.
yeah. So
But we've come today to find out that that wasn't true. So give me your
no.
opinion. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, one thing about America. This is why I'm very afraid. And I'm just not trying to go off topic, but I'm afraid to get out there in social media. I'm afraid to put myself out there because you know what end up happening? When people want to know who you are, people dig up dirt about you.
Yeah,
And
that's a fact. I
for
mean,
no point, but
even with you not being on social media, Joe, if
yeah,
they want to find out who you are, they're gonna dig
yeah.
you up regardless.
I mean, it's Facebook Live, there's videos, there's pictures, there's people recording old clips. Well, I got him on video. They got so many videos of the twin brothers out there, uh, race baiting.
Right.
And it's not made up or Photoshop. No, this ain't AI. This is really was a situation with a black guy when two brothers was out in public, and the females that was with apparently like girlfriends, they was calling a black dude an N word.
Mm.
You didn't see that video?
And this is on tape.
This is on Facebook Live. People record
Oh
this.
wow.
I watched
But
a whole video of them getting into it with some. It started with the girls. The girls that it was with got into it with a black guy, and the two twin brothers was there, and it was, and the girls was calling the black dude the N word, and them two brothers was trying to fight the black dude because he
wow.
because he said some things back.
See, and that once did
And I
that
saw a
once
whole bunch of
did the
videos. Now
media
this ain't AI. This not AI. This is not uh edited somehow to make them look
right,
bad. This is really a you can watch this a Facebook Live video, and there's other videos out there where you watch how they talk, how they act,
right,
how they
and
conduct their
conduct
stuff.
themselves.
There's videos of the father saying inappropriate things and doing inappropriate things, and this is not edited. This is not AI. It's
Right.
out there. Just Google it. You will see it.
See, and that's perfect. And I'm glad you
People find dirt on you.
brought
They
these
find
things
dirt
up,
on you when you do wrong.
so people can go and look and see who these
Yeah.
people who the Metcalf family really is.
Yep.
Because like I said, we've been getting a narrative that that Carmelo Anthony started the whole incident. Look, and let's do a recap. This whole incident started where this young man that they were at a track meet. This young man went to take cover from the rain.
Hmm.
And we all have done this before. You might have been sitting somewhere,
Yeah,
in an
you ain't supposed
area,
to be. I've done it.
where you may not have supposed to been. But who is this guy? Who is Austin Metcalf to come up to Carmelo Anthony to tell him that he has to leave? You're not no one of authority. The only thing that he could have really done is asked him to leave. You know what I mean? So I want you to elaborate on that. Who gave him to the authority? And this goes back to white privilege. So I want you to elaborate on that, Joe. What made him think that he can just literally move him out of the way forcefully, I should say.
Well, it's and you know what? Honest, it's a sports thing, though. Let's be honest. Because when you at a if you at a sports game, right, and the opposite team is there, it will make you. And I ain't gonna say that's a race thing. It will make you want to say, "Hey, get the hell away from over here. You at the wrong area. This is for Team A. You Team
Right,
B. Why are you over here?" So I don't know if that was really about race. It might end up like that, but it was more about you're not supposed to be over here. Why are you over here? Why you at our area? It's a team thing. But I
right.
will say this though, regardless that it became a race thing because the aggression that I had towards him, it seemed to be more racial.
Right.
Because I really was, would you if he was a white boy, I'm talking about Anthony, would you really been aggressive with him? Based on the other videos I saw with them two acting, you're not gonna convince me that you would have done the same thing and had the same attitude if them boys was if Anthony was white.
Right.
I see how you act towards black people. I saw a video. There's nothing but Facebook Live videos. Anybody want to know is out there. And I seen enough today that okay, I got a different light about the family. But anyhow, um, they was bullies, them two boys, and that's what's going to show. It's going to
See, and,
show that there was bullies.
that's exactly what I wanted you. I wanted. That's why I brought that up. Because I wanted you to put that narrative out. These guys were bullies.
There's bullies.
They thought that they were going to be able to bully him.
Yeah,
Because like I said, at the end of the day, he went to take cover from the rain.
yeah, that's it.
And most people, anyone would do that. They were at a track meet. And I'll put it. I'll turn the tables. I think if we had our if while Carmelo Anthony was up under his tent for his team and was set up, and Austin Metcalf came over there, I don't think they would have even said anything because they knew that it's raining out there. That most guys or the athletes were just coming to take cover from the weather. You know what I mean? So I really think these guys had some type of I agree with you. They were trying to be bullies. They saw this young black kid, sitting over in a tent, and who gave them the authority to do that? They could have went and got a head coach, or an adult to be able to handle that situation. So they took it upon themselves to be able to try to force this kid from leaving out of that area. So
Yeah,
and a lot of things that I was hearing from some of the bloggers today, well, we that's still not enough to be able to justify murder. You can't tell someone what they felt, or if they felt feared for their lives. You know what I mean? So I want you to elaborate on that because, like I said, you hear a lot of bloggers out there, white bloggers, and they say, well, it still doesn't justify, his acts that the acts that he committed, which was murder, but it was
I'm a,
self defense.
I do believe that Anthony' intention was to be self-defense,
Right.
and I'm mixed on this, I'm just going to say this. I do believe it's self-defense, but I do think it's a little excessive though. Still, do you think that's necessary to stab him?
When I first heard this case, Joe, I'm gonna be honest.
I,
When I heard this case the first time, and I even said it, I said, okay, this sounds like this may be an open and shut case.
yeah,
From the facts that I heard originally, I thought he was guilty, but like over these last few days, I don't heard a lot of evidence come out, and I had a change of mind. You know what I
but
mean? You have the right to be able to protect yourself.
I
And,
don't. I
at
do
the end
believe
of the
that
day,
too.
if you feel threatened, because the police do it all the time.
But
You know what I mean? In certain situations, so if this man feared for his life, you can't tell him how to react or how to handle that situation if he feared for his life. But
I
do I think that he initially tried to kill him? I think he was just trying
no,
to get them off of him.
I, I don't know. That's why I got to hear more because all that I said earlier, I mean it. You know, but I still believe that the knife or the stabbing was excessive. I just still think that.
That the
I'm
that
not
the stabbing was who?
excessive.
Okay.
You don't see that?
You said
Even
that it
if
was extensive.
excessive.
Um,
I mean, come on.
I'm
He
gonna
could
say
have
yes
scrapped.
and no.
He could
It
have
just
thrown
all
blows.
depends
He
on
could have
how they
kicked. He
approached
could
him
have
and
ran. He could have.
how he felt at that time. Joseph.
I mean, if they was stomping him, beating him down, stomping him, then you could stab.
Right.
Did they do that?
I, I don't know. We don't know. We won't know until that video comes out. But he
If
had to
they
have
if
some type of fear for his life to the point
I,
where
I
this young man has no type of criminal history, no type of criminal past. He was an A student,
I'm not arguing
captain of
that
the football
at
team,
all.
the wrestling team. So I don't think he actually had no intentions on hurting anyone that day. It just felt that,
I agree
it
with
just
that. I'm not arguing with that. I just felt like, listen, I'm pretty sure the white boys came wrong. They came disrespectful. Because if it escalate like that, they were disrespectful. But I would say this, dude, you could have just thrown blows. We see people get jumped all the time. They throwing blows. They whooping ass. Come on.
yeah. I mean, I
I
agree.
just don't agree. I just listen. I'm torn here because I read last night what self-defense is, and I still think it was a little excessive. And that's where I'm torn at on all this because unless he was getting mud, he was getting stumped, and they were throwing blows at him, and they was hit. It had weapons or rocks or something in his hand. I don't understand why you just couldn't fight. I see black people all the time that get jumped. We get jumped. I got jumped before, and I didn't think about grabbing no knife and stabbing. I was just throwing blows, getting them off of me, and we were just scrapping. Then when I got a chance to get away, I got away.
All
I'm
right. What
not.
up, though, BJ3? Yeah, and I agree
I'm
with
just
you, Joe.
not.
And I agree
I'm
with you on
just
that, Joe.
torn
But
on the
you,
knife part of it.
right, but you never see, and you can't tell no one how to react when they feel like their life is in danger. You know what I mean? So he probably felt that he probably felt like he had to do what he did. You know what I mean? To show those guys because and I'll look at it like this. I think when he originally stabbed him. I don't think he was trying to kill this man. I think he was just trying
Is
to,
my you said my
pretty
volume
much
low?
scare them and get them up off of him. You know what I mean?
Is my volume
So
low? My volume low?
you said is your volume low? My volume is low, BJ3. He's probably talking about my volume, so I'll try to turn my mic up. Is that better, BJ3? Okay, he said me. So is that better? Can you hear me better? Okay, well, look, I need for you guys to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We actually I'm over on Zoom live too. I was just waiting on a lot of people to come in and join us, and I was going to set up a Zoom so everyone can be able to come in. So BJ3, if you want, I sent you a link over to Zoom. If you want to come over and come into Zoom, you will be able to come in and interact and talk with us because we're over there now. So going on over there, and I want to see how that's going to work. But yeah, Joseph, go ahead and finish up where
I,
you
I,
were at.
that's what I'm at, man. I'm torn on this area. Yes, I'm gonna put money in to make sure that Anthony get a fair trial because I know how to feel, and I was guilty of what I did, honestly, but I didn't get a chance to defend myself. And, I just had to accept whatever came to me. I'm clean,
Right.
good, nothing my name out. But at that particular time, I know how to feel as not being able to be heard because it's an image and a stereotype about us, and that was just hard, to defend, to work against. But I'm still torn on the legal aspect of it, where I'm not quite sure if stabbing him was
Justified.
justified.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that.
I mean,
You
you
know,
at
and
school,
like
it
I
could have
said in the
fought, people could have
beginning,
broke it
that's
up.
when
I
I
don't
first
see
heard this
what.
story. That's where I was at. But like I said, I've had time to think about this situation, and I've had time to hear
Did you
certain
hear
stories
anything about him getting
a
hit?
little bit
Did you
more
hear anything about
information
him
that
getting?
came out. Go ahead, Joe.
You hear anything about him getting jumped? You hear anything about him getting punched on? Anything like that?
I oops, let me turn this down. I have not. I haven't heard anything about
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony being jumped or anything. I just heard that they were a lot aggressive. They circled him. The actual guy pushed him. I believe that was one of the allegations that the brother said that the Austin guy pushed him, and he told him hit me, and and that don't even sound right. You know what I
That
mean?
don't sound right either.
Yeah,
No.
the whole thing is, the
Nah, I gotta
whole
see the video now.
the whole story that they gave, now like hit me now. Now they tried to make it sound like that's something that a black man would say. Hit me and find out and see. You know what I mean? But originally it didn't even sound like that's like how a situation would go down. You know what I mean? I don't even think he would. It just didn't sound right. You know what I mean? So I'm
So
not going to elaborate on what was said, but the whole story
we
originally to
don't know.
me,
We'll know in a minute.
yeah, it just didn't sound right. But they definitely have video
Video out there, yeah,
of the incident that went down. So we'll see,
yeah.
we'll see how all this went down shortly. You know what I mean? Once trials start. So do you think that they should move this trial, or do you think it should stay in the city where it took place at, Joe?
Well, the only way they will move out of that town if the media keep getting involved, local media in that town gets involved, they keep on spreading bad news. If the jury is tainted, is when they interview the jury and all this other stuff, when they interview when it goes to the grand jury, and they feel like that everybody is tainted, then they will have a reason to take out the town. But I don't see it going anywhere. It has to be some compromising somewhere there for it to have to go out the city,
Yeah, because
and you have to prove
as yeah, because at this point, and I'll just be honest, it may have to be moved because at this point, I think the media has totally tainted and put in the future jurors' minds that this young man is already guilty.
Yeah,
You
but
know
it's
what I
out
mean?
there
So
already. What
say that
media?
again.
You said the media put it out there. There's no town
Yeah,
here to go to without the media. That's not going to change.
right.
But
So
you
yeah,
said, yeah,
I need for
it
you
has to be
guys to
compromised.
like, comment, subscribe, and share. Give me your opinion. What do you think about him being released on bond today? Do you think the judge did the right thing on lowering the bond and actually letting him being released today? So I want to ask you a question about this.
That
About the
bond one
bond.
low enough.
You said it. Now, why do you say that?
$250,000. You could have lowered it 150.
Yeah, he could have. They definitely
He
could
don't have
have.
a history or none of this stuff. Why 250? You hear other people who get in trouble or did a lot worse and they have bond that high.
I agree.
Come on, man. I
Yeah.
didn't agree with that, and that was a black woman who did that too.
And that's what I
You
wanted
know,
to ask you. I heard that the judge was, was a
but I gotta give
black
credit. She did
woman.
reduce it. down
Yeah, she definitely got it down to
750,000.
the point where, you know, he was able to be released, and that was the goal, so that goal was definitely reached today, and
Was
I
it
want to
ten
give
percent?
I say that again.
Was it 10%?
I don't know or not.
Normally,
I
those
think
type
that
of bonds be like 10% down or something.
right. Normally it does, but I want to give
That ain't
a
worth
shout
it.
out to everybody who donated
Yeah,
to his bond, who donated to be able for him to be able to get free and have Lord. I'm definitely, and I need for each and every one of you guys to go over there and donate to this cause because it's definitely going to be needed. He's definitely going to need all the money and the help that he's going to need for this case. But Joe, I really don't have any. I definitely want to. I don't have any more questions. I had actually had a lot of questions that I want to ask, but you know, um, I'm not going to keep you too long tonight. I just want to go over, a few things that we've been hearing today. From the father, from the brother, and him and the brother being bullies. And I just wanted to put some of the stuff up that we have not been hearing, about the Metcalf family. That we've only been hearing the negative things about, you know, um,
by the Anthony family.
Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, I don't know why I keep. I'm trying not to mix him up with the basketball star Carmelo Anthony. But yeah, we've been only hearing negative stories about
Yeah,
Carmelo Anthony and them trying to paint a negative picture. So I just want to come on today, and give people, the viewers, a little bit more than what they've been hearing. This, like I said, this young man was an A student. He was the
yeah.
captain of the football team. He was
And the track.
actually the captain of the track team too.
Yeah,
So he was not this thug that that the
he
media
had
was
two
trying to
jobs.
portray. Yeah, and also worked two jobs and was often to church. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
So
was a
this was
very
not.
faithful to
This
the
was
church
a
ministry there.
respectful young man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So today, my job is to reverse and try to paint a different picture of what um the media has already tried to taint him.
the the
So
parents.
yeah,
Uh,
so I advise everybody to go out and support Carmelo Anthony. Make sure you contribute to his bond. To his GoFundMe, to be able to help him and his family out. And let's talk about this, Joe, before we end it. The family has been getting a lot of death threats.
yeah,
So I want you to speak on that a little bit.
well. First of all, he lives in a town with 8.6% of black people in that town.
Right.
8.6% of black people in that town,
Oh wow.
and the rest of them white. So
Right.
you're gonna deal with that.
Yeah. So that
That's one of the reasons why they put him on the GPS. It wasn't because they say he an animal, they don't know where he at. No, they put him on GPS so they can know where he at, just in case something
right.
happens to him.
Okay.
The GPS is what can find him, and that's one of them. It's for his own protection. That's why they put the GPS on him. And to know where he at, more importantly. But they also said it was for his own protection. So he in a town with 8.6 percent of black people there. So
BJ3, I see you. Can you hear me? Unmute yourself. Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, so he in a town with 8.6% of black people in that town for one. Secondly, the Anthony family are married. They've been married for 17 years.
You
Um,
gotta unmute yourself, BJ3.
the Anthony family been married for 17 years. Uh, the Metcalf family, they've been divorced. Um, there are allegations with the father on Metcalf's family that he had some sexual assault there. I don't think he's convicted, but I think there was allegations. Um,
My
Anthony,
bad, go. Go
An-
ahead, Joe. I hear you.
Anthony had potential for a lot of things right now. He just really wanted to work, pay for any things he needed because the family didn't have a lot of money,
Right.
but they wanted he had to work two jobs so he can be able to support his sports and his other goals. So
Right.
this boy has a lot of potential, and I'm gonna be the first to say is that it doesn't sound like a kid that should have been out on $250,000 bond. It should have been a lot lower. He has shown himself to be a citizen besides now, and I don't think that was fair.
As far as with the high bond.
Yeah, that was too high in my opinion.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, they're going to try to take most of that money, far as with bond to be able to take away from his lawyer fees. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important
Yeah,
for
that's
each and
true.
every one of you guys to be able to continue to donate and help this young man out. Because like I said, BJ3 said they dropped a bond for
Yeah,
him. Yeah, one
yeah,
million
two
to
fifty,
250K. Yes, they
which is
did.
still a lot of money.
But go ahead, Joe.
Still a lot of money.
Yeah. So and that's their plan to, to be able to drain, the
I
money
agree with
that,
that.
that he's raised thus far,
Yeah.
and that's what's going to happen, So therefore, we're going to continue to need you guys to be able to donate and help this young man out through this court case. But I don't have anything else to
Yeah.
add to this. Like I said, I just wanted to bring up a few points that we brought up.
Oh, it's simple
I
steps.
wanted to
Okay.
paint a different narrative and paint a different picture of Carmelo Anthony. This he was not a thug, at all.
Nope.
This was a God-fearing young man, who did everything right, and don't let the media change paint this picture or try to paint this negative picture of this young man because he wasn't. He had no nothing on his record, nothing previous or at all. You know what I mean? So
Hold on.
his future was bright.
He said dad stopped working and had to move for safety of
Yeah,
Anthony or Metcalf.
yeah. I'm hearing that the Carmelo, the Anthony family is going to have to move from their house because of the death threats and all that stuff that they're been getting. Is that
I'm
who
a
you talking about, BJ3?
Carmelo.
Let me get out of this Zoom because it's probably taking away from my volume.
It's Carmelo, but I'm gonna say this. I got all the weapons in the world. If anybody would have came to my house, it would be a part two of that situation.
Right,
I'm just gonna keep it real with you. And I know that down there in Texas and other southern states, they live a more aggressive, but
right.
you ain't come
Yeah,
to my house and
and
terrorizing me. You ain't doing that. Somebody gonna
right.
catch
Yeah, because like I said, the family's been getting death threats. They're going to have to move and relocate. You know, once this once the trial starts and begin. And they're probably not going to be able to ever come back to that. To that home. They're probably going to have to sell that house and get out of that. And get out of that city. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have a lot of people. Looking to get revenge or looking to get back. At
but
this
you
at
do
this
know how that
family.
bond. You know how that bond got reduced, right?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
He had a lot of people in the city from church, from his manager at his job, um, from his job. He had a lot of witnesses that went
Okay.
forth to, to speak for
Now, now,
Anthony.
now,
That's
BJ
how he
three
got to
just
know something.
I don't know if you saw what BJ3 just typed in. He said Texas law says if you're in fear of your life, deadly force is justified.
And there has to be reasonable fear, though.
Okay.
Can't just be the fear. It can't be just you can't just say fear. You have to be able to prove that he was fear. But look, I'm gonna say this: two people run up on you. I feel like there is fear there. I'm just not quite sure there's enough fear to say I gotta kill him.
Right.
Unless they put their hands on them, they jump them, they kicking them, they stomping them, they beating them down. You gotta do whatever you gotta do to get them off of you, and I believe stabbing will be justifiable. But if they did not beat him and they was showing aggression and they did not really beat on him and try to, I don't know if like I said, I'm not quite sure if that would be
Well,
100%
I'm
religious.
gonna ask you this question then, Joe. What would you say? Would you say it would be manslaughter then, or something like that?
I think it'd be manslaughter.
Okay. Now,
But that's if they don't show anything in that video saying that, hey, because if
right,
Anthony was getting jumped and they was slamming him, picking him up, and doing things to him, stabbing is justifiable. But
right,
if they was circle him, intimidating him, I'm not quite sure. And so I heard one video and the twin was talking, and the other video just bashing him.
right.
If that's the case, don't tell me that stabbing was justifiable.
Yeah, but like BJ said, that the Texas law say if you fear, now he feared for his life, that you could use deadly force, so I'm quite sure his lawyer is going to do a great job, hopefully there's some type of video of them, actually grabbing him and putting him in fear, you know what I mean, to the point where somewhat be justified for him, trying to go in his bag and getting that knife and stabbing him. Now, the guy being the guy ended up losing his life at the end of the day. Yes, that it definitely was a tragic situation. No one should have lost their life in that situation. And I'm not disagreeing with the end result. No one should have lost their life. You know what I mean? And I
And
feel
that's
for
what
the
he's saying.
Metcalf family, but on the
Look at
other
BJ
hand,
three say. He said it was arguing back and forth with the team. The team. That's not enough to stab somebody.
no, it's not, but like I said, but at the end of the day, I think once we see that video, it'll come out and it'll show that he feared for his life and, he did the right thing, because it could have been the other way around. They could have been, they could have killed him.
I just know that when it comes down to self defense, and I watch a lot of this stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's TV, and I
Right.
read a lot of law stuff. It is so hard to prove. You got to go through so many challenges to prove self defense. It ain't
No,
just
I
as
agree.
it ain't as easy as people say it is. People say, "Oh yeah, I was fearing for my life," and that case closed. No, that doesn't work like that. You got to be able to articulate. You have to be able to prove that your fear was valid.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand. Fear for your life is not that's not the only statute of that. Fear for your life, it has to be more than just your fear. It has to be a reasonable fear that you're gonna have to convince a jury of 12. I said nine last time, but I think it's a jury of 12.
Yeah.
You
Now,
got to be able to
BJ3
convince
said
all
if
12
you're
people.
surrounded for by a team, that's a good chance you will be crippled for life
That
or get killed if you're
surrounded,
surrounded by a team. So he could
surrounded,
have, that
surrounded
like
is
BJ3 said, that could have put a lot of fear in him that he was
y-
going to be,
I agree the fear
killed
was
by the team.
I'm not arguing about the fear part of it. Fear
Right.
is
You
there.
just
If I
you
see
you're
if
ar-
I see a
your
dog
thing is
run
the
up,
outcome.
no. The fear is reason. I'm never arguing the fear.
Okay.
But is your fear enough to say, hey, I got to kill him?
I mean, we saw plenty of
If it
cases
wasn't
where
no
you had
hit,
white people that said they fear for their life and that actually got off that fear for their life. So a lot of our people are looking at it like that. In return,
okay.
sometimes eye
And
for an
that's
eye.
true though.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I mean, and we can name multiple cases where
It used to be in summer
we
grad.
clearly saw these guys being murdered, and these guys got off because they said they feared for their
Let me ask you a
lives.
question. He asked
Go
the
ahead.
question, is somebody grab you and you wait until you get stumped out? No. So if I'm outside and I'm outside, right? And it's a bunch of white people. It's not on my block. It's a lot on my block actually. But I walk outside and I'm arguing with one white person.
Right.
And a whole bunch of other white people circle me. I get to pull out my 9 millimeter that I carry every day, just for the record. Do I get to kill every one of the nine? Do I get to kill all the white people that's circling around me and my man arguing because they circle me? It doesn't work like that. I'm going to prison. Fear of your life has to be more than just fear. It has to be reasonable fear. Reasonable fear is not, oh, okay, it's a whole bunch of people around me. I get to act, I get to do what I want to do. No, there has to be some type of aggression or action behind that fear.
That's what I was getting ready to say. There
And
has to
and
be
I
some
don't
type of
see
action
that.
from the other party
Just
to
because
make
they
you fear for
circle
your
you
life.
don't mean, man, how many times we seen a fight in school and we all circle around that fight? You mean tell me he had a right in school or a fight at work? We see a fight at work, and we circling around them arguing. That means he get the right to just to swing his damn toolbox and swing all of us because we circle. No,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, man,
or in
it's
school.
hard to try to justify that, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna stick with the Carmelo that he feared for his life, and he did what
The
he
fear
what
for his life, I
he needed
agree
to do
with.
to be able to get out of that situation. But I need for you
That's
guys
why it
to
will
like,
not be.
comment,
It will
subscribe,
not
and
be first
share.
degree.
Tell me what you think about. We got a few people watching. Let us know what you think about this situation. Was Carmelo Anthony justified for the stabbing, or do you think he's guilty? Let me know. But yeah, Joe, I'll let you finish off. I don't really have anything too much to
Yeah,
add. Like I said, I just want to come and clear up, a few things that we've been hearing, about the Carmelo Anthony family, about the, just with all the
hmm
campaign smearing that they're doing to this family. I just want to bring up these issues, and then I also wanted to, paint a picture of the Metcalf family too,
yeah.
because we have not been hearing anything negatively
The,
about this family. Everything has just been, about Carmelo Anthony and just what he done. You know what I mean? So I just, like I said, I just wanted to bring a few things to the table so people can see that this Carmelo Anthony is not a thug. He was not violent. He was not up there
no,
trying to start anything. He was
no.
just out there just trying to
Anthony,
take cover from
I
from the
agree.
rain. And this was a horrible situation that went bad. Did the brothers think that you know and that's my question too. And that'll come out. I won't even go down that route. But Joe, I'll give you the last word on that. Let
Okay.
everybody know what you got going on and where they can reach
Right. Again, my name Joseph Knows. I'm on Facebook. You can reach me on Joseph Knows. You'll see my face, my white face, whatever. But reach out to me. I'm more. I like to have these discussions. I like to hear what everybody have to say. I like the people hear what I have to say. I like to talk. So if you let me talk, I'm gonna talk. Um, and that's it really on that. Just how you reach me, and I'm always available. And but I will say this. Um, it's okay to have fear. I mean, just that's a human nature side of life that you can have fear of things. But I have fear about things many a times. Many of things in my life that I fear about. I fear about my kids not being able to survive without me. I had a lot of
right.
fear about a lot of things out here, but I don't get my fear do not dictate reality. And just because I have fear of things, don't gives me the license to do what I want to do. And even if he did have self defense, and I do believe that he have a self defense case, I want to say that I'm not quite sure if it's a strong self defense case, only because if those kid did not put their hands on him, I just think that you're gonna have a hard time proving to the peers of that town. He's gonna have a hard time proving to them that his actions was justifiable. I do think he has self defense case. I'm not quite sure if it's enough where he's going to be able to convict 12 to convince 12 people that what I did was the right thing to do.
Was justified.
And
Right.
that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
More of the afraid part. I'm just afraid that it's hard to convince 12 people to agree on one thing.
Right.
That's going to be hard
Yeah.
for him. And that's why I'm helping with the legal defense. Not that I believe he's innocent or guilty. I am uh I'm reading what he's
He said,
he
let's have
said.
a complimentary meeting and we can make sure you have enough coverage. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you meant by that, BJ. Let me read the other one. If you're arguing with five, okay, that's something else. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Um, I'm just saying is that that's why we got to think about things. Just because you have the right to do it, don't mean you should do it.
Right.
Because you're gonna have to explain, articulate, defend your actions.
Right.
And it's sometimes it's better not to put yourself in that situation. Just like me, I have a CPL, right? Even if I'm outside and I have a right to shoot a guy, I have to think about all the legal thing that can happen to me by shooting a guy. If I can try to avoid that situation without having to shoot that guy, I need to do that.
Right.
I don't need to just say, "Oh, I got CPL. The law say I can shoot you if you violate me." I have to think about all the heat that comes with it when I
Right.
take this action. Anthony is 17 years old. I'm 40 years old. So it took for me, I'm mature enough to understand that's what it takes for me to make these decisions. I got to think about all these things before I make my decision. He's 17 years old. He don't have the mindset to think like that. But you have to think like that if you are going to put yourself out there and you're gonna deal with this sport.
Right.
You got to think like that.
No, I agree.
Unfortunately, I'm
I
17
agree with
years
you
old.
100%. But when you're surrounded, and you're fearing for your life, sometimes, and I'll be honest, sometimes your thinking sometimes go out the window, and you
You
just
know,
you react on instincts. You know what I mean? And I think that probably what that's probably what happened in that situation on both halves. You know what I mean? So but yeah, Joe, I don't have
but
anything else
he
to add.
said he was worried about if something has happened to him. He wants to make sure his wife and kids are taken care of. If something happened to him, what are you talking about?
Let me read. He said he was worried about if something had happened to him. He wants to make sure his wife and kids are taken care of if something happens to him. Yeah, I'll have to tap back in with BJ3 to see what he
Yeah,
got on that one. I
me?
think he was talking to you on that one, Joe.
Are you saying if I said I was worried about something happened to me? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, if
I
you
didn't
don't
bring
have
my wife and
anything else
kids
to
in this at all.
add, yeah. So look, if you don't have anything
I'm
else to add, Joe, we can go ahead and close out.
good, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Look, and at the end of the day, I just wanted to bring some of this new some of the new news that we heard today,
all right.
to you guys, and you guys just look, continue to donate,
Yeah,
continue to back Carmelo Anthony up, and wherever this case goes. I don't have anything else to add, Joe. It's your boy Damn D, and we are out.
we out.
Peace. Yep.